Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are here today to talk about Picard. Season 2, Episode 3 is called Assimilation. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. I forgot to say Star Trek, but I assume people know what I meant.
Yeah.
It was in the title, it's in the thumbnail. People they know what it is.
It's Picard, a Star Trek story.
Yeah, I forgot I mentioned last week. I was reminded because it starts off obviously right away from the cliffhanger from last time, which was they were held at gunpoint by the husband character and his two goons. One of the goons looked like a young Ryan Gosling. Oh yeah. I remember thinking this last week. It was when I saw him again. I was like, oh, he's got a bit of like a cheap knockoff Ryan Gosling thing going here.
Oh, I didn't notice. Are his eyes kind of close together?
I don't know if I noticed that, but he looked like Ryan Gosling with a little goatee, like he's going a little. It's like young Ryan Gosling trying to like, I'm a man, I swear, like I've got a goatee.
Oh, like he was when he was on that show. It's like High School on a Boat, some Canadian show. I can't remember what it was called.
High School on a Boat.
Yeah, it was a weird premise. And my sister really liked it. She always watched it when she would go up and visit my grandparents, and then she would come back and tell me about the show. It had Ryan Gosling in it.
Okay. Is Ryan Gosling Canadian?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. All right,
well, he acted in Canadian TV anyway.
Yeah, maybe he's like one of the few actors who is American who went and did Canadian TV as opposed to the other way around.
Maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, we start off with the cliffhanger, and I have to admit, I did think the cliffhanger from last week now, in hindsight, feels a bit weird because they actually like deal with it and get to the point where they're traveling back in time by the time they hit the opening titles, and I thought, well, I'll just get to this point at the end of last episode and then start this one.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? I don't love it either. It kind of reminds me of this documentary I watched on Netflix about some cult. I was really excited to watch it, and they would end every episode of the miniseries. They would end with this big cliffhanger, like this big question where you're like, wow, that's amazing, I gotta watch the next episode. And the question was answered like in the very first like scene, and it would be so unsatisfying. And that happened every single episode where I just sort of got tired of it. I'm just well, I know now I'm not gonna like worry about this cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's just in hindsight, because I assumed they ended with that there in the last episode, because I thought, oh, because it's going to take them a while before they can achieve the time travel, but then they did it all before the opening titles, and I thought, okay, well now that cliffhanger feels like really cheap and weird. Why did we have to have the standoff kind of moment? Yeah,
I mean, I think it would have been more satisfying of a cliffhanger if like Elnor had died, or in the last episode, or if we thought he was going to die.
Yeah,
which he does get shot in the previous episode.
He does, but it doesn't treat it like, oh, he's, because it wasn't until this episode where he starts coughing up blood and stuff. It's like, oh, he actually might be in danger. Yeah. Now, obviously, we're dealing with time travel. I suspect he's going to be back later.
I suspect so too. Also, because they do like murder a lot of people, and I guess it's because, well, you know, time travel will fix it. That was mostly in the last episode where they did all the murdering, but like it's enough to where you're like, well, I mean, you know, we're in a different timeline and we'll fix it all, and then no one will have to be murdered.
Oh yeah, because they vaporize everyone. Like, all these like three guys, including the husband at the start, they all get vaporized with the phasers.
I'm glad they didn't have the vaporize setting when they shot Elnor.
Yeah, that would have been unfortunate, wouldn't it? We wouldn't have
it was unfortunate to watch him die. I thought that was actually quite. I was surprised by it, but like at the same time, like I do think, okay, that means they have to fix that. Fixing time travel will bring him back. We'll bring everybody back.
It does mean that he's going to be. I mean, I don't know how long we're going to spend in the past before we come back to a changed future, but if it's a while, then it means he's gone out of the show for however long that lasts. He's going to be gone for several episodes, perhaps. I don't know if this is going to be like most of the seasons in 2024, or is this just like a 2 or 3 part thing, and then we're on to whatever Q does to them next kind of thing.
I'm not sure. I remember when I watched the trailer for season 2, it seemed like the majority of it was going to take place in 2024. Like this is the season of the voyage home, and that was going to be the main thing.
Voyage Home,
But
of
it
course.
could just be that they only want to show like the beginning episodes where, I don't know.
Yeah, Voyage Home's obviously the apt comparison because it's very obviously the reason why they're in the past is different because it's basically Voyage Home mixed with Back to the Future 2. That's the premise of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it's Voyage Home because it's Star Trek and because they're back in present day, but it's Back to the Future 2 because it's this awful alternate future has been created and we have to go back and fix it. So this is like Marty going back to 1955 kind of thing. And I'm not intentionally doing this, but this episode was directed by Lorraine McFly. Leah Thompson.
Maybe it's an intentional on the showrunners.
Yeah,
like...
Leah Thompson, who played Lorraine McFly, who is Marty's mother, who is in all 3 movies, but is heavily featured in the first one because that's like he's trying to fix his parents getting together. So there's a lot of her in the first one. She's like a TV director now. She did episodes of Stargirl. I noticed that last season of Stargirl, so I wasn't surprised to see her name this time. But it was the first time I saw her name pop up as like directed by. I was like, wait, is that the same Leah Thompson from Back to the Future? And sure enough,
yeah,
it is. So
it surprised me. I didn't know she was a director. I haven't watched other things she's directed.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe she's a Trek fan and she wanted to get in some of this. She was like, yeah, I want to do some Star Trek.
Actually, I do think this is a pretty well directed episode.
Sure. I didn't really notice anything different, to be honest.
I like the Borg Queen stuff a lot.
I did notice a few Dutch angles. They're not staying away from them.
Yeah, well, I'm sure she got the rundown before she sat in the director's chair.
Jonathan Frakes walked in and sat down.
Stare with the camera like this.
Yeah, he stepped over the chair like he does. He sits down. And he's like, "All right, listen up. We got rules around here."
It's probably written on the side of the camera.
If in doubt, tilt to the left. So
and spin around.
Yeah. So we get to the 2024. There's some tension at the start when they're almost not going to make it, or they're not sure if they're going to make it. The big thing is that Eleanor needs medical attention, but they have to give all the power to the Borg Queen so she can take them back in time. So that puts Raffi in this place where she's there to witness Eleanor die, and then she is pissed at Picard, and she is like a woman on a mission. She's like, no, we're going to fix this as quickly as possible because I have to believe that this can bring Eleanor back. And when she asked Jurati's like, I don't know if it will, which means it might, but she doesn't really know. And Raffi's like, well, I have to believe it does because it's the only way I'm going to get through this next portion of my life is believing that there's a way out of this, that there's a way to fix this.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that. Like, obviously, the Borg Queen required a lot of power to get back in time, but she's basically used up all that power, and she's running like on a very limited battery before she passes out. And it is very much Picard chooses to save the Borg Queen versus saving Eleanor. Because
they need her to be alive because she knows where the Watcher is. And I also, maybe this isn't true because once they fix the timeline, maybe they'll just snap back to where they're supposed to be. But I was thinking, don't they also need her to get back to the future?
Yeah. There it is again.
It's so easy when you talk about time travel.
I imagine so, or it's going to be like cues like, congratulations, Picard.
Yeah.
Or maybe he snaps him to another location for another test.
I mean, that's what I'm expecting, but it did seem odd to me that no one on the ship questioned, wait, don't we need also her to get back? Because otherwise we're going to be stuck in 2024 once we've fixed everything.
Yeah, I don't know. But by the way, before it happens, when like Jurati like knocks over the Borg Queen when she's in her tube, and like the Borg Queen's like crawling around from behind the boxes and stuff, I thought that was a really great scene. It's like straight out of a horror movie all of a sudden. Luckily the Borg Queen is also has the intention of going back in time, so she just uses her tubes to like plug into the ship and stuff. But when I was saying like I thought this was a really well directed scene or episode, that scene really stuck out to me.
No, her crawling around was good. There was a good moment visually.
Yeah,
I'll agree with that. So back in present day, and there's the typical look. We're in the past. We can't be causing ripples, no waves, so no phasers because Rios is getting ready to go out. It's like, oh, fine. But I do what I love. I love that they didn't have like any fancy replicators or anything to make them time appropriate clothes. It was like, right, find some clothes that will be close enough that won't stick out. So they're just sort of ripping badges off things, and it's like, okay, this is just gonna have a black jacket. This will work. I appreciate that. That was.
They still look pretty cool though.
Yeah. And they have some communicators, which basically just work as walkie-talkies because there's no system to connect to. It's just, okay, we can talk to each other. It'll give the ship a signal so they can beam us back if they need to, but we can't really do much else with them other than that. But so I got a really big laugh out of this episode because I think they'll land in France. I think they'll land on where Chateau Picard is.
We don't really know. He just says home, right?
Was
he says we're gonna land home.
I assumed that's what it was. I assumed that's where they landed because it was like a big field, basically.
Okay.
Maybe some trees.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be convenient for them to go to Raffi's home because she's in Santa Clarita. It's right next to Los Angeles.
Is that technically where she's meant to be, though, or just where it was filmed? Because there is a distinction there.
It could be that, yeah, maybe she's on like Mars or something.
Trust me, if the parts of Gotham City were actually Glasgow and the Batman, so it's like
I suppose maybe she's actually on the Gorn planet or the planet where Kirk fought the Gorn.
True, yeah. So there's at least another place in Star Trek lore that has that rock. So
Vasquez Rock.
You can't rule it out. You say Vasquez Rock, and I see like the actress from Aliens, like her head just like Mount Rushmore, but
it's just her gun.
But Vasquez, yeah. And her red bandana. Yeah. So Jurati really says this up. She's like, no, like you cannot lose that phaser, so you can't take it with you. If anything, like technology falls into the wrong hands, also don't go anywhere where you have to prove your identity or be scanned or read or anything like that, because if they find any of our modern tech or vaccinations or anything that will be weird, it might cause a ripple and might change the course of time, yada yada, all the usual time travel stuff. But the reason why this built to a laugh for me is that when they all beam at places, apparently their teleportation right now is a little wonky. They can't like pick exact spots, so they all land in LA, but they land, Jerry Ryan, or sorry, Seven arrives kind of next to a little girl who's like, are you a superhero? So that's a little moment. And then Raffi arrives next to like a bunch of homeless people. Rios lands like right next to a fire escape, so he's like a few floors up effectively in height, but he can't quite grab on, so he ends up falling and flipping and landing. He completely face plants.
Landing.
Yeah, he face plants in the concrete, and it's actually really funny though, because he's like, he's bleeding, he's clearly hurt, and I just started laughing because like he used to go to a hospital, and one of the first things Jurati said was, don't go to a hospital.
Don't go to hospital. Yeah, that was shocking.
So it's funny to me because like I expected him to screw up. That was kind of like the way she was saying it was like, okay, obviously one of them's going to like break one of these rules because that's going to give us plot. But the fact that he broke this rule before he even hit the ground when they teleported in was really funny to me.
Yeah, that was a good punchline. I enjoyed that a lot too.
So that sets up. So they've got like some separate plots here where the ladies are going to the tallest building in LA to try and like ping a signal because they can maybe find who this Watcher is, because their theory is that the Watcher is probably not supposed to be here. It's probably an alien who's hiding in present day Earth, so that they'll give off a signal that's unique or different, or something that'll make them stick out from a scientific perspective. So they're trying to scan
something
for
they
them.
Can pick up on.
So there's a little bit of them like sneaking up to the top of this roof, and the one main thing here, other than the fact that Raffi's just really like grouchy right now and just wants to like save Eleanor and just hasn't got time for jokes, isn't enjoying anything, is that Seven of Nine is like kind of enjoying the fact that she's just an attractive woman that people are giving attention to. Like, the kid likes her and looks up to her. The security guard basically just gives in because, well, she's kind of an attractive woman. He probably would let his guard down a little easier.
Yeah, and he doesn't want like Frank to be like cooler than him.
That was Kevin. I'm pretty sure it was Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin. I like I like that there's still little moments of Sevenism where she's like, I need you to take we're just up here to take a cellular photograph or something. And Raffi's like, you just say photo.
Yeah, that was a weird phrase. Yeah, but because Raffi even points out, because you're kind of seeing that it's happening throughout the few scenes she has in the episode, and then Raffi's like, why don't you in 2024 get a room?
I actually think this is a really good character development. Like the whole idea that she's never been without her. Like, she was assimilated when she was a child.
Yeah.
So she's never not been either a Borg or had Borg implants that immediately caused people fear when they saw her. So, like, her just being this regular, like, attractive woman, and, you know, people not being afraid of her, even the kids just like, are you a superhero? And she's like kind of cutesy with her, like, yeah, can you keep a secret? And, you know, it's an experience she's never had before. So she's kind of, you know, enjoying it. And it's a side of, you know, Seven that we've not seen before. Well, in obviously Picard or in Voyager.
I have 2 points to make on this. One, I get that it's because it's Borg tech and that's why it's scary. It's that, because the joke I'm about to make is that, well, yeah, that one little bit of metal suddenly makes her this terrifyingly ugly woman who no one would pander to.
Obviously, she was in a catsuit. Like, there was a lot of reasons to be intimidated by Jerry Ryan.
Right, so that's just a silly joke.
Because but also her just, like, intelligence, too, is very off-putting.
Yeah,
like, it's very, yeah.
That's the silly joke, but, like, I get that it's, okay, it's because it's Borg tech and everyone in the future is rightfully scared shitless of anything Borg, right? understand that, right? The other joke that I want to make here is that basically then her experience with the Borg on her parts on her face and this idea that people don't trust her, that people aren't kind to her, aren't as this welcoming to her. Oh, she's living the life as an ugly man. That's just effectively it. I relate to that now, right? That's people look at you like you're some sort of creep when you pass them on the street, like you're dangerous because you've got a beard and you wear glasses. Like that I understand. That I relate to.
That's a bit harsh.
Yeah, so that's basically their plot. And there's a little bit of like topical stuff to see, like a fire in the distance, a forest fire. And they talk about how, and this is sort of tied into like the history in this new timeline and how this is why things get bad, is because you keep going further down this path and eventually it leads to the regime that's in place, you know, the domino effect. So that's their plot. Rios' plot, on the other hand, he gets a bit of a love interest this episode, I'd say. Yeah,
with perfect TV written doctor lady. Who's absolutely perfect and available.
Perfect, available. He even gets on well with her kid because he meets her son who steals his badge.
His kid's clever.
That's what I say. But he calls it a badge in the scene because he can't say it's a communicator for obvious reasons, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
To the point where he almost bribes him with a cookie, which apparently this kid's just so smart that he's planning on him using the cookies that are on top of the fridge because he can't reach the cookies. This is like some sort of weird, like, the dog wants the treat, but he's going to have to trick the owner into getting the treats down off the top of the shelf. That's what this scene is, effectively.
Oh.
But yeah, there's some banter. There's
kids and cookies.
There's some chemistry and.
I actually really like Rios in this. Like, it's interesting that we're like starting with all of our characters separated again, being that that's how every episode has started so far, with all the characters separated and having to get together. But I actually enjoy every story that we get in these separate adventures, and I think Rios is probably the strongest one. Like, I just like the chemistry. I like that he is like the fish out of water.
And to be fair, and
he's funny
on the being separate thing. Rios is the only one that's kind of like accidental though. Everyone splits up intentionally, and yeah, he's meant to meet up with the two ladies to do their thing, but they've still found each other. He's the only one who's kind of lost and not, you know, needs to find the other people. But we're getting more of a sequential plot now where he's starting to bond with people. He sees someone he wants to help. Immigration shows up because this is not the hospital. He ends up in a clinic, which does a lot of, you know, immigrants and things like that, stuff people who can't go to the hospital. Yeah,
they do some under the table work for people who are immigrants, and Rios doesn't have any paperwork on him or any IDs, so they just, and his name is Cristobal Rios. I was surprised that they were surprised that he knew how to speak Spanish. Like, he introduced himself as Cristobal Rios with like a Spanish accent.
Yeah, it was, and you know what's weird about that moment? Because there's this scene where Dr. Lady and like one of the nurses who works there is speaking Spanish a little bit, and all they say is, "Oh, that guy's putting his clothes back on. He'll be gone soon." And he comes in and sort of speaks Spanish, and they turn around and get a little bit like embarrassed, and I'm like, why are you acting like he just caught you saying, "Oh, that sexy guy's putting his clothes"? Like, he didn't say anything incriminating.
I guess. I mean, they were kind of like giggling.
A little bit.
A little bit. The way women do.
Like the way they react when he's like, "Oh, I speak Spanish, by the way," like it's like it's like one of them just said, "Oh, he's got a great ass." Like that's what it played like. That's what the scene played like.
I really like the scene with him and the doctor, and like she's asking him to tell him a story about his childhood, and then it's all just a ruse so that she could like push his bones back together in his hand and stuff. I thought that was a legit like laugh out loud moment for me as well.
Because he gets really into his stories. Obviously, he's skirting around some details because he can't, it's not, he can't reveal that it's the future and the pilot he was trying to be is a spaceship pilot, right? Like that. He has to like, fudge some details. But he's getting into it. He's connecting with this woman, and then she just causes. And because the other scene as well, where he's like, "I'm just going to leave and be out your hair," and she's like, "Oh, you're going to walk out on your own free will?" And he go, and he tries to stand up and he can't.
Yeah.
He's like, "Am I doing it?" It was a
Yeah, they have good chemistry together. Plus, adding a doctor lady is sort of standard protocol when you go back in time in Star Trek.
It was a pleasant enough plot, I would say. Obviously, immigration shows up at the end, and he tries to pretend to be a doctor, but they see that he's got some taped up fingers, and like, "You look like you're a patient." But that didn't work, and they arrest him and Doctor Lady. So now he's like in a real predicament because now he's been taken. So not only did he get injured and need medical help, he luckily ended up in a place that wouldn't keep a record of it or wouldn't look into who he is. But now he's going to.
He lost his badge, but he knows where it is.
But
and
now,
it seems like it's safe.
Yes, but now by the end of the episode, he's circumvented that into being taken in by ICE, which are definitely going to document the fact that they've grabbed him, and so on and so on. I mean, presumably though, they'll never get like a official answer about who he is. You'll say, "I'm Mr. John Smith."
And he's separated from his communicator.
Yes, that's the other big problem. So they're going to have to go looking for him at some point, unless like he makes a jailbreak with Doctor Lady. Maybe they'll go on like a little adventure, escaping.
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
especially if he still has some secret tech.
Yeah, either secret tech or maybe there's like a control panel or something that he's like, "Oh, I know how to do some wiry things with this." I can.
Oh yeah, that's true. He is very efficient.
Yeah,
we should see.
Yeah, so it sets him up on his own plot for now that it so far is likable enough, and I think if I'm comparing this to season 1, I think one of the advantages that this has so far is one, it doesn't have shit villains ruining things every 10 minutes, so that's a good thing. But the other thing is that I can see clear character development and multiple plot lines for multiple characters. Rios is clearly going to have a story here where he bonds with someone, and this is presumably going to be the biggest comic relief plot of the show, at least for the next little while. Seven of Nine's plot's quite interesting because she's kind of getting this chance to experience being human, and it feels like they're actually getting to explore that, as opposed to last season where she was almost like just a guest star for an episode who then came back for the finale kind of thing.
Well, also they introduced something in the last season where she was going to have to connect to the Borg cube, and like basically you become the role of the Borg queen, and how that was going to be very traumatic for her. But like she does it and it's over in like an episode. It was very unsatisfying.
Yeah. And of course you get Raffi being mad at Picard again. Jean-Luc's always, or JL as she calls him, always messing things up. I actually feel a little bit bad for him because she's like, "Oh, you've been playing this game with Q for decades," and I'm like, I don't feel like Picard gets much of a choice. Q shows up and snaps his fingers, and Picard just has to try and think of his way out of it. It's not like he's enjoying the back and forth. I mean, maybe there's some episodes I've not gotten to yet where he does kind of get into it. I don't know, but
well, there definitely is.
Okay.
But he always learns something from it. Like, yeah, it's true that he does play this game with Q a lot, but at the end, like Q, like there is a character arc to Picard. There's at least 2 episodes you haven't seen yet with those Tapestry and All Good Things.
Yes, so
there is like, it's not for nothing, when Q interferes.
I wasn't trying to play it. Was I just in the context of this conversation though? Like,
Yeah.
She's
Well, I mean, he could have said something.
She's implying that he is 50-50 to blame with Q for all the shenanigans that Q gets up to, and I'm like, he doesn't. It's not like he calls up Q and says, "Oh, I'm in the mood for another brain tickler. Come on."
Yeah, especially not at however like century he is right now in age.
I need to keep sharp, Q. Give me another one. Go on.
It's one of those things where I'm like, oh god, maybe they should have just let me die and not put me into the body of this synthetic golem instead.
Oh dear. So the other plot, of course, is back on the ship. Picard sticks around with Jurati, and they're going to try and get the Borg Queen up and running. And the Borg Queen doesn't want to give up the information, but Jurati's got a plan. Picard doesn't want to do it, but Jurati wants to. I'll hook into her and like.
Well, also she's basically dying. The Borg Queen. She's shutting down. They say that she's at like 8% power or something.
Yeah. So she wants to hook up to her though, because if she goes in her head, she can. If Jurati connects to her and goes into the Borg's Queen's head, she can maybe like go around and find out some stuff and reboot and whatever. But Picard, of course, is very skeptical because effectively that means that she's open to assimilation, and the Borg Queen will immediately start taking control of her. And Jurati finds a way to sort of split some parts of who she is so that they don't go in with her, so there's always a part of her that's separate. And it's her anger, her fear, and her insecurities and all those kind of things. So we get this scene that's kind of played for laughs where she's hooked up to the Borg Queen, and Jurati's still talking to Picard, but as the Borg Queen is seemingly looking through different parts of Jurati, she goes into these different moods. And like, when she goes into the anger room, as she calls it, she starts calling Picard a prick and getting really upset. But then there's another point where she starts saying, "Oh, I'm really insecure around you because I wish you were my father," and things like that. So yeah, there's a roller coaster of emotions there.
Yeah.
The Borg Queen does speak through her a little bit at one point, but Jurati ultimately is able to pull the thing off. The big thing out of this, other than the fact that they get the coordinates to the Watcher by the end, because Jurati's like, "Hey,"
which is also a great moment,
Yeah.
where the Borg Queen's like threatening to be like, "Oh, I have this over you, so you should give me your ship, and that'll be our bartering chip." And Jurati's like, "Except I already got it from you," and the Borg Queen says that, "You've impressed me," and she says it in a way that's very ominous, like, "You've done something very rare and dangerous. You've impressed me."
Yeah, because the big thing is that she took that without the Borg Queen realizing. Because when she says, "Why don't you look and see if you've still got that information?" the Borg Queen sort of goes, "Do," and she's like, "Wait, where is it?"
Yeah, you can see the fear on her face even too. Like,
so it's not just that she got to see the information; it's that she took it from her and it's gone.
She played her.
Yeah, so she conned her. The Borg Queen was the mark, and Saul Goodman here, Jurati, was able to con her. So
I haven't watched that show yet. Yeah,
but I think you get the gist of what I just said.
Yeah, actually go ahead before I say my thing about this scene, because you said there were 2 points, or before we went into the Borg Queen stuff, you said something about Jurati. No, okay. Is it gone?
If I said that, I've forgotten that I said that, and I've certainly forgotten what the second point was. I'm not convinced that wasn't a previous scene that I already gave 2 points on that you're confusing together.
I thought you were going to say something else. I'm like, well, yeah, but let's finish out this moment where Jurati gets some information from the Borg Queen. But the thing I thought was really interesting is sort of like added on lore to the whole becoming a Borg thing, is that when you do get assimilated, it's like a drug. Like, you get euphoric. Because I've always thought of it as just fear and terror, but like you're part of a collective. Like, I know the loneliness happens when you get disconnected, but I never thought that it would be this feeling of euphoria, which I thought was a really interesting thing to add on to it.
Yeah,
just the experience.
I guess on the flip side of the whole collective thing where you're taken away so you feel fear, it does make sense to me that in some level when you do connect to it, that there is kind of a feeling of comfort, at least. So spinning that into euphoria is this kind of feeling that doesn't feel that silly to me.
Sure, but it is interesting that Jurati is going to be plugged into that, and she's the one who's actually having issues with loneliness and depression more than likely. It's a little bit I don't want to say on the spectrum, but there's something,
Well,
at
actually,
least about her that is.
there's a part of that scene we should probably talk about is when she's going through the different rooms and she gets to sadness. She straight up starts talking to it suicidal in this scene.
Yeah.
She starts talking about how
it's a dark room.
she starts talking
that
about
she's in.
how difficult it is to try and push through the sadness. So she wonders to herself, what if I just stop trying? What if I just lay down and let it consume me? And it kind of sounds like a suicide style thought process.
Right.
So I think that's worth mentioning because that was a pretty dark moment, actually.
Yeah, totally. And, it's something that's there. It's something, a lot of people have, obviously, we're all capable of feeling sadness. And, if things get bad enough, we're all capable of getting that depressed. But it seems like she's has these feelings that she's just locked away. Like they're all there. Like she does get mad at Picard sometimes. She does wish that he's her father. And she does sometimes feel this depressed and maybe even suicidal. I mean, she did kill her boyfriend last season. Not, under duress.
Under duress or just straight up, like, control?
Control.
Yeah.
It was the alien mind meld thing,
Yeah.
Made her do it. But, yeah, she still did it. And I remember the tears. But again, Alison Pill's my MVP of this episode, of the show so far. I thought this was the best scene in the episode.
Sure.
For a pretty good episode. Pretty great, even.
I mean, you're very willing to hand out that great tag when it comes to Trek. I think it was a fine episode. I don't know if I liked it as much as last week's necessarily. Mainly just because I think last week introduced all the ideas that this plot is going to have, and that those were pretty tantalizing. This week, I would say little over directing the spot. Sorry, Lorraine, but a few Dutch angles here or there, a bit too many. But I enjoyed most of the character plots that are set up. Once again, though, I kind of oddly feel that Picard himself is the least interesting right now, and that's a really weird thing to say, but
there was a moment where Q showed up also in this, just briefly, where
I was
when they
wondering,
were going back in time.
I almost wondered if they're going to play with the idea that when he sees Q like that, is Q really showing up, or is this just Picard going a bit?
Nobody saw him, right?
Yeah, no one saw him. And I buy that Q could probably do that, so it's probably is just Q, but at the same time I'm like, is he starting to imagine Q at times just appearing? Well, I mean, obviously all this happened, so it can't be Q, or sorry, it can't be in his head, but it did get me thinking, like, what if you did the whole season where Q's like behind the plot, but then the twist like late in the season is that Q was never here. This was all just in Picard's head. Now, obviously it can't be that because of everything Q did to set up all this time nonsense in the end of the first episode, start of the second episode, but
unless it was all done by the Borg Queen.
But it did get my mind working. No
one else has seen Q yet.
Got me thinking about it. What if that is the twist? What if the Borg Queen did? I mean, literally right before he goes to his old home again and sees Q, it's when the Borg Queen's like, putting her tentacles and everything on the ship and whatnot. So, okay, just on the off chance this is vaguely right, we'll call it now. Q's not really here, and it's actually the Borg Queen who's done all this, and that's why she's so integral to the main plot right now, is because she's behind it all.
Maybe. That could be it. I mean, I'm still under the assumption that who we saw in the beginning was not really the Borg Queen.
The characters think it was, though, because they even said as much last episode, so...
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't feel stupid for making that assumption myself, because the characters did too.
That's true.
So there you go. But not bad. Not a bad episode. Certainly we're on track to easily trounce season 1 at the current trajectory.
Yeah. You're right. I do think that, Picard is definitely part of the ensemble in this rather than it being him in the center. But honestly, like, the less Patrick Stewart speaks, the better. Not that he's not great. Of course he is. He just sounds so old to me. It makes me sad.
He doesn't sound like Picard anymore. This is one of these things that is difficult when you bring an actor back when they're much older. I was... one of the things that happens in movies these days is sometimes you get the we're going to digitally CG someone to look much younger, and we'll have the actor still voice it, obviously. And one of the things that sometimes happens with that is that you'll notice that the voice doesn't sound quite right. And it's not because there's anything that they're faking with it. It's just that the actor's 20, 30 years older, and naturally your voice does change a little over time, and it doesn't match the younger. Even if the CG's perfect and the face looks right.
Oh yeah.
That said, though, there was an example. I don't want to say what it was in because it would spoil the thing I watched that it was in. But there was an example in the last week or two that I saw where the CG wasn't very good, but the voice was identical. So I had to comment on how much the actor's voice in 25 years has not changed, and I was impressed by that.
Yeah. I wish they would not, because in the previously on Picard, they keep showing the clip where Picard's like giving his authorization code to blow up the ship, and that's like a moment where he sounds pretty old, where he's like, authorize Picard, like he kind of mumbles through it, and I'm like, don't play this clip. Stop reminding me how old he is. It makes me so sad.
Oh, yeah. So hey-ho. But I mean, I think they're leaning into some of the other characters a little bit more, which I think is good because it's giving them something more meaty to chew on.
I already like these characters. I realized that in the first episode. I'm like, oh, I'm happy to see them again. And, you know, I don't mind that Picard's taking them a little bit of a backseat because I do think these stories are interesting where they're going with all these characters.
Yeah. But ultimately, I think I wasn't against most of the characters last season. It was just the plot they were in kind of lent itself for the progression.
Well,
and their...
we were both against the Romulan couple.
Oh, they
siblings.
were terrible. Who really, really wanted to screw each other. It was like there was so much sexual tension in all those scenes.
It was weird.
I don't know. But
maybe that's what Romulans are into. I don't know.
Ask Eleanor. Oh no, wait, he's dead. Never mind. So
sad.
Thank you very much for joining us. You can let us know what you thought of this episode of Picard in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. And of course, if you want to support the show and the content and everything we do, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv where you can support everything for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?